Welcome to the Signifying Donkey Show, ladies and gentlemen. Joining me today is Torrie Harper, a good friend.
Good morning.
Good morning, Torrie. We went to high school together in Germany, and I always talk about one of the things that motivated me to get this show going was our conversations. So today we're going to do a kitchen table issues episode where we discuss the primary financial issues of concern for most Americans, I would imagine. So we're going to discuss gas prices today, the cost of eggs, and we're going to get into interest rates a little bit. So first, let's start with gas prices. I have a theory about why our gas prices are so high now, and one of the things that I think is influencing our gas prices is Saudi Arabia. About 4 months before the last midterm election last year, they cut production of oil, which caused the price of gas to increase dramatically here in the United States. So I think it's important to discuss that because, in essence, if we normalize that type of behavior or that type of foreign interference, if you will, in our elections, then other countries that we depend on, like China, when we depend on them for certain products, well, they have the ability to influence voter decisions. So that's one thing. The other thing is I'd like to put in perspective. I know you and I discussed this. We went to high school in Germany. So one of the things that we both observed when we lived in Germany is that the Germans pay a much higher price for gas than what we pay in the United States. As a matter of fact, even military personnel that were stationed overseas, they had the ability to get their gas on base or on post and at a reduced rate. So we're kind of spoiled where gas prices are concerned, but I do understand when a family is making financial decisions and setting aside money for their budget to make it through each month, it's difficult when the gas prices fluctuate so much. So that's my take on why our gas prices are so high, the foreign interference, the ability to influence our elections. What do you think are some of the factors in why our gas prices are so high?
I got to tell you a fun fact. When I went to University of Maryland in Munich, Germany, I actually worked at the gas station. So wow. I remember it very well.
I worked at the gas station in BK. Did I ever tell you?
Really?
So we have a gas station, history in our resume in common.
I don't know. But I don't disagree with you. Yours is way more terrifying than what mine is. Mine is basic corporate greed. I do think that these corporations are just, if you can, we continue to pay. Why not charge? Whether it's a flight or coffee or gas, it just seems like if I can increase the rate and you're still going to pay, why wouldn't I? So, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I still think behind it all is corporate greed. The only people making money are the stakeholders, not the employees.
That's a valid point. And I think, the bottom line is it would be helpful if we could figure out a way to make gas prices more stable so that there's not this huge fluctuation based on what Saudi Arabia decides to do or Russia decides to do with their oil production. And I like the idea of clean energy, energy independence and the idea of electric cars. But you got to look at the strike that's going on right now. You got to kind of peel back the layers. And if electric cars aren't as profitable and they're not going to be as beneficial to the American laborer, then you have to be slow with your introduction of that product into the economy, or you'll do the people that work in that sector a disservice. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And I did some research about the interest rate, and I found out that in 1973, OPEC did an embargo on the United States for about 6 months. And the price went from $3 per barrel to $12, which was a 300% increase. Now, in 1973, I was 6, so I certainly don't remember that, but I do remember like long lines at the gas station, news articles, and then they did it again in 1979 after the Iran-Iraq war. So this isn't the first time that it is Saudi Arabia, by the way, that Saudi Arabia has been messing with their economy because it completely shut down. I mean, Carter was only a one-time president because of that, because of gas prices. So it was really interesting to me how far back we can look at Saudi Arabia putting a finger on our politics.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, when I think about Saudi Arabia, the first thing that comes to mind is Jared Kushner. So not to get too much off topic, but if you think about it, if they really have that much influence over our gas prices, and if they gave Jared Kushner $2 billion for whatever reason, even if it was an investment, we have to start to say, whoa, wait a minute now. You know, that was President Trump's first visit, the first foreign country that he was Saudi Arabia. So not to get too much into Biden or Trump right now, I want to keep it at the kitchen table level. So the cost of eggs. There was an H1N1 bird flu outbreak last year. Mm-hmm. I know you're aware of it. You know, you're a well-informed person. So when I see Republican candidates on stage and they have, Biden's economy and the cost of eggs, the reality, and I wonder if you would agree, regardless of who the president is, it's kind of like what the pandemic did to our economy. Regardless of who the president is, these are dynamics that are fixed. So the cost of eggs wouldn't be any lower if President Trump had been reelected. So when I would please people, to the audience, when you see those kinds of, I call them politics in play, pay attention. Right. Recognize it for what it is. Yes, the cost of eggs should be much lower, but regardless of who the president is at this point in time, that's something that was, an unavoidable situation that caused a shortage in chicken.
Yeah. Right. 100% agree.
So, yeah.
And the interest rate. So what do you think the average interest rate, Freddie Mac started keeping track of it in 1971. What do you think the average interest rate is from 1971 to 2023?
The average?
50 years-ish.
I would say where we are now, just a guess, I'd say 7%.
8%. You are correct. Wow. The highest it ever was October 1981, and it was 18.63.
Ouch.
18. And that was because of the oil embargo. Right?
It rears its ugly head again.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to me that it goes back to the oil, that the reason why the interest rates went so high, inflation, and the lowest it ever was January 2021, obviously the height of COVID, and it was 2.65. In the 70s, it was 7%. It's been 7% for a long, it's average. So when people say it's a high interest rate, it's really not. It's actually below average. It's 7 point something. So it's kind of, it goes back to the price of eggs and everything. It's creating this problem that doesn't even exist. If you look under the hood, there was a reason why the cost of eggs went up. There weren't as many of them. There's a reason the interest rate went up, because we're in kind of a inflation, kind of not. My niece lives outside Charleston, and she has a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot apartment. And she just was notified that the rent's going from $1,550 to $1,882, which is an increase of $332. And how is the average person have $300 a month extra?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because to me, those are the two biggest concerns I have. When I start thinking about my son Malachi, my daughter Jordan, they're getting ready to, go finish up college, and be on their own as adults, and you look at what the average rent is in the country, and even what the average mortgage payment would be. But more so, let's focus on rent, because normally you're going to start off as a renter and save a down payment for a house. So when you start talking about a path towards home ownership, that path is extremely steep at this point in time. When if you're having to pay $1,500 in rent, even with, you have roommates that are helping you pay the rent, it's a difficult journey to get ahead. So interest rates, these increases in rent, it's a very important topic. Now, one of the things that I wanted to mention
about corporate greed.
Right. But you know what? I think corporate greed is part of the equation, but ignorance is a part of the equation as well, because how many people know that the president can't call up the chairman of the Fed and say, I need you to lower interest rates, or I need you to raise? That's an independent decision. But what happens in politics is there's this dependency that voters will remain ignorant and won't do the research and figure out that isn't a Biden thing. So if you're not happy with your current interest rate, or you're trying to get a home right now, and you really can't blame that on Biden. That's a Federal Reserve, that's a chairman of the Fed decision. Now, again, I need you to fact check me here. Am I right or wrong about that?
No, you are correct. And it's equally correct that I can't blame Trump for COVID. I can blame him for his reaction to it and how he dealt with it, but I can't blame him. He did not create COVID. He didn't bring it to America. It's the same exact thing. Biden is having to deal with what's going on and coming up with a solution. And that's what every president has to do. It's president, it's the Supreme Court, and it's Congress. So there's three parts, and it doesn't seem like any of them are really working right now. And you go back to your point, is that the ultimate goal for Saudi Arabia?
Well, you know how we fix it?
How?
I got the answer. Look, I looked at your shirt and I said, and you inspired me. Like on the first show, you had a vote shirt. So I don't want to always promote the Signifying Donkey Show. I don't want to shamelessly plug all of my merchandise every time I'm on. So I ordered some vote shirts as well. So when we do our show, we're gonna now have this little thing like, what's his vote shirt say today?
Yeah. This one's different. I have like 4 of them, of course.
I really like this one, and that's really what it boils down to. Whether you're talking about whatever branch of government, if you're talking about the Supreme Court. And now there's some questionable things, whether you're talking about Clarence Thomas and, the tuition and the benefits and the yacht trips and the luxury trips and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with those things if you weren't voting on measures that directly affect the people that are giving you that stuff. I mean, that's corruption. And that we need to talk about that more. Then you look at Congress, we're on the verge of a shutdown where our hardworking military people, you and I, wouldn't have gotten the education we got if it wasn't for the Department of Defense dependent school system. So you and I, we love our military, and to see that there's a chance that they won't get a check, I'm ashamed. I think people had this misconception. Me growing up in DC, real quick story, since it's in context. The reason that I fell in love with politics is because not the grandfather I talked about in the previous episode in New Jersey, but my mother's father, he used to have me sitting there with him watching Face the Nation. He was a political buff. He liked politics, and he would just sit there and laugh and talk, criticize different things going on. And that's how I learned. And that's how I kind of acquired this interest in politics. You have one job, and that's to fund the government. You literally have one job, and you're failing at that. So that's a nonpartisan request on my part. I don't care what you need to do. Democrats, Republicans, cut a deal. Make a deal. You all are supposed to be professional deal makers.
Right.
Prove it to us. Show us. So thank you, Torrie. I appreciate you showing up today. That's another great episode of the Signifying Donkey Show. Don't forget to hit the like button if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe. We need more subscribers as we move forward on this journey.